2010, I was at an industry party in Tribeca, New York. There I met a musician, a composer, who was working on writing scores for motion pictures. He is from Venezuela, and his music has taken him to Florida and California and Europe and New York, Manhattan, the Hamptons. And so, we kept in touch periodically throughout the years. We connected again this winter in New York City at the palatial Cooper Hewitt on the Upper East Side to discuss music, magic, Carl Jung, and the healing aspects of sound and art. We can do the thing where when you speak, the camera's on you. When I speak, I guess the camera's on me.
So, landscape or portrait? Okay, recording take 1 with Kala.
Hello, Gabriel. My first question to you. You're a composer and multimedia artist with a background in music therapy. What inspired you to get into music therapy?
First, I studied music in Venezuela. I had studied a year of sociology in my country, Venezuela, which has, of course, some psychology, and I really liked that. And then I had the opportunity to go to Boston, to Berklee College of Music. I went there specifically for composition with digital means and production. And while I was at Berklee, I took few courses from the music therapy department. From my studies in Boston, what I wanted to do is help the music therapy community with the music technology aspect, because I realized they didn't have a clue at that time, and it was very important to have them some help with digital tools. So after graduating from Berklee and had experience composing, producing, I went to Miami to continue music production. And while I was there, I was still curious about the music therapy, and I knew that the faculty of the music therapy at the University of Miami was one of the best of the world. So I decided to find a music therapist in Miami, and they granted me access to some therapists and some venues, and one in particular at the VA hospital in Miami was really the trigger. I don't know if you've seen the movie Awakenings. There is a movie with Robert De Niro and Robin Williams, and that was kind of what happened that morning when I went to that facility where they treat manic depressive people. They're there maximum 3 months, and one of them and the therapist told me he never speaks. He only speaks when the music therapy arrives. So it was a very powerful experience. I really can't tell with words. At the end of the session, which lasted about an hour, most of the patients were really changed and touched. They thanked us for the session, and in particular this patient that never speaks to anyone, doctors took advantage to ask him how he was doing, because otherwise they didn't have any information. So I really saw in firsthand the power of music, and that really made me decide I'm going to try to get into the program, and that's what I did. So of course music therapy is very intense, and it's not as it's a very intense field, and it requires a lot of study, a lot of dedication, and also if you're going to be a practitioner, you have to be prepared to deal with a lot of difficult situations, from physical pain or the mental illnesses or conditions of some patients. So it's not for everyone. So at the end, after a year, studying, I decided to continue on my composition path. But anyway, I keep an interest in music therapy. So, speaking about therapy, what inspired you to do art therapy?
My studies in art therapy weren't formal like yours. I didn't go to school, but I was going to see a therapist, and it just so happens that, you know, as we were talking, she knew that I was into art, that I grew up with art. My mother's an artist, and so she told me she had a background in art therapy. So as we're going along and we're kind of having our therapy sessions, she offered to do art therapy with me, but also teach me about it as we were going along, and teaching me the symbology and teaching me how to work with art therapy to heal myself. But then also it was something that I found that I could use to sort of like understand others. Before studying on my own in the 1990s, I had witnessed the power of art therapy in my mother's healing journey in the 1980s, which I included in my time capsule series. Right after my mother was hit by the car that night, she was unconscious and wasn't breathing. And when they got her breathing on her own again, she had no memory of me or anyone else. Her frontal lobe was damaged, and she spent the following months in a rehabilitation center in Albany, New York. Eventually, it was art therapy that brought back her memory. This art therapist, she was also very much into Carl Jung, and I was about 21 years old at the time. And she incorporated the symbols of and the archetypes of Carl Jung, as well as working in, you know, the symbols of dreams and all of it into the art therapy. It was so fascinating. It really stuck with me. It was really something that I feel has sort of infiltrated all of the art that I do, the writing that I do. In art, you can also use words, you can use poetry. Art is so filled with symbols, so filled with symbols of dreams and things like that. I found that I could really utilize what I learned with art therapy into all mediums, even film. You know, that's the great thing about art. It's like almost anything visual can fall under the umbrella of art therapy. And that's how I see it.
I agree completely, because I'm familiar with Carl Jung's work, and I know that he really had art very, very high esteem, and the true nature of oneself, and conscious, subconscious, and I'm not paraphrasing, but art is the true vehicle to express oneself.
You know, there are these peculiar faculties of the psyche, that it isn't entirely confined to space and time. You can have dreams or visions.
To me, art in the end is the maximum expression of anyone.
Wow, yeah, yes. So I grew up with both in my household. My father's a musician, and so I'm really fascinated with how it influenced you as a composer.
Well, yes, that's a vast question, but studying music therapy informed me much better about the specifics regarding the impact of sound on perception and well-being. So, for example, when you prepare a concert or when you create a piece, or even if it's a cue for a segment for a documentary film, and depending on the emotions that are being expressed there, the knowledge about music therapy really helped me to be more effective. Documentary films, it's very easy to fall into traps of overdoing, sentimentalizing things. This very detailed knowledge is very good to be restrained and to have the right dose of sounds and intensity. And for other projects like albums that are more meditative, it really has shown effectively to the audience, because I received good feedback on the therapeutic aspect of that album and that music. So. Definitely, I don't think I could have done it like that without the knowledge of music therapy.
The art therapist that I was telling you about, she told me something that I always talk about. She said that every work of art is a self-portrait. Mm-hmm. And she was speaking specifically about art therapy, drawings, things like that. But I really found that that's so true with absolutely everything, music absolutely included. So I think when someone's a composer, as you are, that when you compose music, it's a self-portrait. Mm-hmm. In many ways, even if you're making it for a documentary, you're making it for, let's say, a job, or you know, you're doing it for someone else, you're commissioned, it's still, there's a part of you that is in that music, like a portrait, like as if you were making a self-portrait. Would you agree with that?
I agree, I totally agree. Even, I mean, and that's kind of one of the main, I wouldn't say struggle, it's more like a goal, perhaps. Every composer or musician, even players, find their voice through the instrument or find their voice through their composition, the style, and so that becomes their portrait, even though sometimes it's commissions. But I think I come through have an identity, and people have told me that, and even for the documentary films, that's why also they hired me. And when I practice play piano, I tend to play and compose in the lower mid-range of the piano. If that, I think I tend to like. There's a mode in music called Dorian. Then instruments-wise, because making music is like making, of course, paintings. So there are so many colors, palettes, and you create them when you add instruments and superimpose instruments at different intensities and different attacks and different times. So in terms of acoustic instruments, I like the cello and the flute, and so I include a lot of flute in my music. And then of course the electronics, wild world, so you can do pretty much almost whatever you want. So Carla, when we met, I was struck by your unique last name. My country, Venezuela, Mandrake is even embedded in the culture. So there are many funny statements as saying, you're even funnier or you're crazier than Mandrake the magician, right? So, I understand that your grandfather, he was the real Mandrake the magician. He traveled all across the Americas, as well as across the world with his magic show. Do you ever think of putting together a movie or a TV series about your grandfather, the real life Mandrake the magician, along with the comic character Mandrake the magician?
That's a really cool idea, to combine the two, because they were both popular at the same time. So we're talking like 1930s, 1940s, 40s, 50s. My grandfather was traveling around with the show, and Mandrake the Magician really is the first comic superhero. And so it really is amazing. My grandfather was kind of a superhero in his own right.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yes.
The most versatile floor show in the entertainment world.
And so I love that idea of this sort of combination of the two Mandrakes. I made my own documentary, which was, I know you saw it, it was called Mandrake the Magician. It was a documentary fairy tale, is what I called it. And why I called it is because I kind of worked in a little bit of fiction along with the real life story of my grandfather from my perspective as his granddaughter. And it's a very artsy film. It's all in black and white, and it's laced with poetry.
Maybe he emerged from a magic lantern, lost in the deserts of Egypt. Or maybe he was a fish and grew into a boy. Maybe he came from the ocean and swam to the surface before he could even open his eyes. Maybe he came out of a box of magic tricks. Maybe he stepped through Alice in Wonderland's looking glass. never looking back.
Actually, Hollywood was going to make, there were producers a couple of times in the mid-2000s. Yeah, and Sacha Baron Cohen. And
Imagine that.
That's,
Yeah.
like, yeah, if you brought comedy into it, that would be pretty
Exactly.
hysterical.
No, nobody.
I will look on your treasures, Gypsy. Is this understood? I will look on them. Who is this lady you have shrunk? Was she the owner of this house that you camp in
No.
front of?
There's a couple more child stalls.
Do not try shrink me, Gypsy. I serious.
And then another time, Hollywood was going to make the Mandrake the Magician movie, and that was going to star Jonathan Rhys-Meyers. He's a very cool actor. He's done some series on HBO and other things. But both times I fell through because they didn't get enough funding. I was in touch with the producer. I wanted to, be a part of it, of course. Like, I was very excited with the whole idea of it. But I don't know, I guess it's a matter of like divine timing because it just hasn't happened yet. But as far as me putting it together, yes, you have really inspired me with the idea just to like put something like that together. I really, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you have to. You have to.
Yes, it's such an interesting story. It's such an interesting hybrid of like putting those two things together that I think it would really be super interesting. And in this day and age, I mean, you could work in all kinds of crazy things.
You used to do with the tools nowadays, they are almost magic, right? VR, and some call it XR, which is hybrid reality. So those, I think, and having the audience be part of the trick, I mean, not the tricks, the magic act, and perhaps do something with these tools. So it's not simply a movie to watch, but it's something interactive. Well, there's an interactive component. I think that would be great, and I would even honor more the magic as a field.
That is so innovative, such a very, very cool idea. Yes. And I was looking up your family background. Very interesting in Venezuela. And I know your family was there for generations. And as a matter of fact, at the Museum of Petrolia, your great-grandfather created the very first commercial oil production in Venezuela. It was in the 1800s. So he was the pioneer, and he's the first, and he's even in the museum there in Venezuela. And I found that so very interesting, for many reasons.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting story. They found oil in his property, and he pursued the exploitation, and they started by hand. I think the production was like 15 barrels a day. So yeah, they got into they were pioneers and got into the business of oil and derivatives. From what I know of my family, they've had this spirit of pioneering.
Do you know what was going on politically at that time of your great-grandfather? Like anything about the atmosphere of that time?
The late 19th century was still very unstable in Venezuela, and there were struggles to establish the republic, like a steady republic, and there were periods of dictatorships, and still Venezuela had the same issue as many other countries, even the U.S. But when they're forming, Venezuela used to be called the United States of Venezuela because they were still. In the beginning, there were different states that, of course, they fought against each other, and at some point, they tried to put them all together, and that's everybody fights when they try to. So that happened throughout some time, and so that was kind of the everyday in those days, and in that area especially. The Andes, where my family come from, and it's been a very important politically. A lot of leaders and good and bad, have come out of the Andes. And I would say the majority of Venezuela come from the Andes. So I wanted to ask you, when I met you, you were a producer. I think you were working in Game of Thrones, which I also had the opportunity to watch one of your interviews and learn more about how you never thought this series was going to get as big as it got.
Game of Thrones, I had no idea was going to be what it became. Did you?
I don't know if when they first put it on that they thought that. You know, who's going to watch a show about dragons and lions and tigers and bears?
But the thing that was special about it, because I'm not a fantasy fan either, but what was definitely special about it was that it was a lot like Sopranos. It was very family oriented and about relationships and all the conflicts of power and on that relationship level. I always attribute the great success, I don't know if I'm right, by the way, but I attribute the great success of Game of Thrones to the very last episode of that first season. I don't know if it's true, but because it was a great season. But then the last episode, what they did was they killed off the main protagonist. It was such this powerful thing where it's like, oh, it's gut-wrenching. They take away this, like, the heart. Like, this is the character that had all the heart in this show.
Yes, yes.
And they just took him away. I mean, obviously, it's a book adaptation, so
Yeah.
they were taken from the book, yet they could have killed him off in season 2. You know, it didn't have to be, you know, you can put it together however you want, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah.
So with the book adaptation. So yeah, it was clever, it was shocking, and I think that's what kind of like exploded the whole thing. You and I met so many moons ago, and you, I remember, were doing music for documentaries, and I found an email that I had sent out with your work, with your links to 2 of the documentary creative directors over at HBO. I found those emails.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was looking back at our old emails and I was like,
Wow. I actually, so I only sent them my music as album, but they were really nice. They listened to some of it, and you know how it is, and it's a waiting game. But
Totally.
they were really nice. I mean, they were just to get an answer from that type of level of it. I mean, for someone totally unknown like me, it was already very gracious on their behalf.
I'm so interested in hearing about your current projects, because I know that you're really moving into the live performance. I know you've been doing that for a long time, but I think you want to move more seriously into your live performances, which is you doing the music, but also I know that you have beautiful installations. So you really create a whole world, don't you, with your music?
I've been working on creating music along visuals for a very long time, and also collaborating with different visual artists. I now, although under the stage name Gabo, specifically I've been working on a meditative set, which is about 30 minutes. This came from the desert experience. Then I'll move to live shows. In those shows, there's images and basically only me playing. And the other project I'm working on is called Deep Surface Immersive, and it's about the ocean. It's a new version of a project that I started many years ago that actually brought me to the US because it had the sponsorship from the UNESCO, the Ocean Commission of the UNESCO, and in the city of Miami Beach, they really liked the project and they presented me. And that led to different things, so basically some evolution. And that was a project with dance, video, and music. And now I'm just sticking to visuals and music, and I decided the best way to make it immersive and more controlled in a way, because sometimes live shows can become very chaotic, right? So I decided, well, let's try to do it for Planetarium. And recently I released the album for the Dolby Atmos format, or this spatial audio for the Planetarium, and that's basically what I'm doing now. And hopefully the project will be premiered late 2026. Which art field do you feel more comfortable in writing, as a producer or instead a filmmaker?
I like the whole thing, really. I'm just like, I like the holistic experience, which is everything, basically. It's like, it makes me really happy to do everything. But what I do right now, for example, is I produce my own kind of documentary series. It's like a video diaries, which is writing, which is directing, which is doing camera work, editing as well. So it's kind of like, it's producing it, obviously.
They say it isn't mandatory, but they also say your job or your job.
TV, I miss it in a lot of ways. So in a way, it's like I feel like I'm trying to rekindle creating this TV experience, like the TV network. Like I feel I'm almost like making my own TV network.
You could restructure your present, restructure the future. But what if you could restructure the past? Go back in time travel, visit your inner child, and recreate the past.
The theme really behind it is about time. It's called Time Capsule, and it's captured in time, and it's this idea that time is stacked on top of itself. It's not linear.
No past, present, future. No beginning, middle, and end. Just coexisting with every version of myself.
I would love to graduate my work into also live performance. I think I was telling you about that a little bit last time.
Very good.
So it's kind of like making the TV network idea sort of thing into a live experience.
And maybe all the world is a movie, a big superhero movie. Maybe everyone secretly wants a king, someone to carry us on their shoulders and make everything better. But maybe we shouldn't conform to the patterns of this superhero world.
I understood better now what you do and what you do, so
Cool,
thank you.
thanks.
That was good. Good. Thank you. Let's introduce our.
Well, then you can narrow down this question that you wrote.
Okay.
Of only focusing on that you did some research on making people.
Okay, cool. And then you'll talk a little bit about that? Yes.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yes, just a little question to you. But I'm just gonna wait one second.
You still have some lights.
Okay, cool.
It's true.
Yeah, no, we did so good. The sun is being very nice to us.
Very nice. Very nice. Very
It's like,
kind.
I think it slowed down for us, didn't it? It's like, so,
So an act of
I feel
magic.
like it should be gone already.
You did it.
It's
You did it.
magic.
That's you.